Hello, and welcome to another gamebook playthrough. My name is Sprocket, and today we're going to be reading a book called By Balloon to the Sahara. This is a crazy adventure that will bring us to all kinds of interesting times, places, and of course adventures. Here's a quick look at the back of the book. You can pause it and read it if you like. So this is a blind playthrough for me. I'm going to do my best to choose a fun adventure based on my own choices. But if we end up with a couple of bad endings along the way, then I'm going to pause the video and I'll look up a good ending or one of the best endings on the internet, so I can come back and present you guys with a full playthrough experience with a proper good ending. At the end of this video, be sure to stick around, or you can skip ahead if you like, but I will do a book review of my opinion and a rating of this book. I hope you guys are excited for this playthrough. Just take a minute, please, and leave a thumbs up or a like, and let's begin the adventure. You are visiting France with your two best friends, Peter and Sarah. For a lark, you all rent a balloon. Peter packs a picnic basket and Sarah buys a large jug of fresh milk. Harry, your dog, begs to come along, and you let him scramble in. At last you lift off and start your adventure. To the north you can see the white-capped Alps, and to the south the blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea. As you drift over the villages, people look up and wave at you. Suddenly you notice storm clouds approaching from the north. If you act now, you can release gas from the balloon and land before the storm overtakes you. If this is your choice, turn to page 2. Perhaps the storm will pass quickly. Maybe you can ride it out. If this is what you decide to do, turn to page 3. Well, if I were a sensible person, I would land, but we're on a crazy adventure. So, of course, we're going to stick it out and see where this storm takes us. So let's turn to page 3. Lightning flashes, and the four of you are treated to a frightening and spectacular display of nature's fury. Man, I can't even imagine what that must be like to be in a hot air balloon in the middle of a lightning storm. As the night passes, the storm breaks, and the moon appears from behind clouds. The night wind is warm, and far below you see the silvered waters of the Mediterranean. Dawn comes with streaks of red and gold, and to the south you see a hazy line of yellow, the coast of North Africa, and the Sahara Desert beyond. Should you try to land the balloon near the shore where fishermen could help you? Or should you drift further south toward the desert? There will be cities of white with minarets, cool oases with date palms, and Arabs flowing white robes. You take a vote. If you all decide to land near the shore, release the balloon's gas and descend to page 6. But if the lure of the Sahara is too strong to stop your flight, put on some suntan lotion and drift south toward page 8. So I think we should probably stop and try to get some supplies. I think the Sahara probably is our destination here, based on the title of the book. But being an adventurer, we know we need to get some supplies. I don't think we even packed any water. So we're going to land and talk to the fishermen. Let's turn to page 6. Looking up and down the shoreline, you realize that you have landed on a very remote section of the North African coast. Nothing except sand and low, scrubby hills can be seen in either direction. But it certainly feels good to be back on solid ground again. Eagerly, you all start to explore your surroundings. Harry finds an interesting bush, but it is Peter who spies the entrance to a cave which overlooks the beach. Just as you start to climb toward the cave, a dozen horsemen in white robes thunder over to the top of the sand dune and ride toward you, shouting and waving swords. If you decide to accept capture, raise your hands and surrender, put on a good smile, and hope for the best, on page 12. But if you think the horsemen are dangerous, hide in the cave that Peter has discovered on page 19, and watch your head as you crawl through the narrow entrance to the mysterious cave. Let's take a look at this illustration of these horsemen. They don't look very friendly. I see several swords raised up. One of them even has a gun. I'm kind of worried about going with them. But, on the other hand, we're leaving our balloon behind. And they could damage our balloon or sabotage our balloon. As far as I know, I don't think we have any light source to explore the cave, so I think we're going to surrender. We're going to accept capture. Let's raise our hands to surrender and turn to page 12. The dozen horsemen rein up next to you in a shower of sand. The men are dark and fierce-looking, with brilliant white teeth and deep-set eyes. In a strange language, they command you to get on a horse. With Harry trotting proudly beside you, the riders turn back to the desert. For hours, there is only the sound of leather creaking and the hollow echo of hooves on barren rock and sand. They follow a path through a narrow canyon, guarded by desert tribesmen who stand high above on rock ledges, holding rifles and watching the horizon. You have entered their desert stronghold. The valley opens out, and soon you see parched fields of wheat and large open ponds of water. Finally, you enter a white city surrounded by high mud walls. You are taken to a large house. As you enter, you see that it is a palace with an open courtyard in the center, green plants growing everywhere, and colorful birds singing from nearly every branch. Friendly servants come and bring you food and drink, but every door is guarded by one of the desert tribesmen. At last, a man enters dressed in red robes, with a silver-headed dagger on one side and a sword slung from the other.
"Greetings, honored guests,"
he says in a deep voice.
"It is the fate of Allah that you have come to my kingdom. Perhaps it is also fate that you hold the key to my victory against hateful men who have invaded my desert kingdom. Will you join me in my fight against these evil people, or must I return you to the shore of the Mediterranean? The choice is yours, and I will do no harm if you do not accept."
So I'm guessing he wants to use our balloon to get the upper hand on his enemies. We really don't know anything about this conflict. I do believe him. If he says no harm will come to us, I do believe they are honorable people, so maybe we should respectfully decline. So let's let the chieftain know that we wish to return to the North African coast and turn to page 52. You tell the chieftain that his fight is not your fight, and that you wish to return to the shore to find assistance from fishermen. He slowly shakes his head.
"I wish you had chosen otherwise, for I cannot allow you to carry away the secrets of our fortifications."
He motions to a guard who approaches you with a strange smile on his face and his sword raised. You realize now that you have made a terrible mistake and that you will never leave the desert alive. The end. Okay, well, looks like I clearly misjudged this chieftain and his people. So we'll use one of our redos, and this time we'll choose to assist him and turn to page 51. The chieftain smiles.
"It is as Allah wishes."
He sweeps his hand, and the guards leave.
"You are my guests. Follow me."
You walk with him through crowded streets. Men smile at you, and women giggle from behind their veils, but all are friendly. At last, the chieftain points to a pond.
"You think that we water our crops from those ponds, but you are wrong.
Those ponds contain salt water, which we pump from wells. The sun evaporates the water, leaving us great quantities of salt.
Then we trade the salt for goods, which we need, with the merchants who come by caravan. But now invaders have come to my kingdom, and they are trying to take our only treasure, our salt. Will you take your balloon and act as our eyes, for you can see far distances from aloft, while my men can see only a few miles from the backs of their horses. However, if this is not your wish, you may depart in peace, and may Allah be with you."
It is a difficult choice. The flight may be dangerous, but you are committed to help these brave people. If you choose to help the chieftain, inflate your balloon and get ready to act as the Air Force of the Desert Tribesmen. Your mission is on page 70. But if you wish to continue on your journey, go to page 71. Well, we already know what happens if we say no, so I guess we'll go ahead and prepare for our mission. We're going to turn to page 70. Willing hands help you inflate your silk balloon. Men, women, and children gather around the basket, holding it from rising as you and your friends make final preparations. The chieftain steps up to hug you before you leave.
"Take care, my friends. See what you can see. Drift on the afternoon wind toward the interior of the desert. There you will see many men and machines. We must know if they are advancing on our stronghold."
"But how can we warn you?" Peter asks. The chieftain smiles and hands you a large mirror.
"With this," he replies. "Flash it so that the sun it catches will shine on my army of men. 2 flashes and all is well. 3 flashes will mean that the enemy advances towards us. We will be waiting for them."
And with that he signals for the balloon to be released. Soon the desert stronghold is a tiny speck in the distance. You drift over low mountains and across trackless sand, and in the late afternoon you see a strange sight. Another balloon exactly like your own. It must be from the enemy camp. Should you drift closer and try to talk them into making peace? Or should you get close enough to attack them, perhaps to use your mirror to blind them? If you choose to make peace, drift closer to page 108. But Peter tells you excitedly that warriors of ancient Greece used their shields as mirrors and burned attacking ships with the concentrated rays of sunlight. If you attack, turn your mirror to the sun and focus the rays on page 72. I don't think we're going to be able to attack these guys. We probably should try to make peace. So let's drift closer and turn to page 108. As you drift more closely together, you are able to see that the other balloon is the same color and shape. You toss a line, and the 2 balloons, like giant pufferfish in a crystal sea, drift together. The other balloon's passengers are just like you and your friends. Exactly. Even an identical Harry. Somehow, you have met yourselves through a time warp. The other you explains that the enemy in the desert is actually a stranded band of space travelers. The fuel for their spaceship is ordinary salt that you buy in the store, but very rare on the planet from which they come. However, by blasting deep into the desert with lasers in their quest for salt, they have found great pools of fresh water. The answer is obvious. Trade salt for water. The desert men will be able to grow bountiful harvests, and the space travelers will have fuel. It is all arranged, and each balloon returns to his camp to tell the good news of peace and trade. The chieftain rewards you with honorary citizenship in the Desert Kingdom, and the United Nations honors you with a great prize. Kings, presidents, and generals come to you for advice, and though you are happy, you sometimes wonder about the other you. But when you look to the night sky, your eyes fall upon a certain star, and you know. The end. So it sounds like the identical us that did the time travel. Maybe we traveled back with this the space people back to their colony in the stars or something. It's actually kind of a cool ending. I like that. Well, I hope you're enjoying the video so far. And if you are, leave a comment with the word adventure, or if you prefer, you can just leave a like. That would be much appreciated. At any rate, we've come to 2 endings on our own so far, and I haven't really gotten very far into the book. So I think I'm going to pause for a moment and look up the right path, or one of the better paths that we could take through this adventure, so we can reach one of the best endings. So I'll be right back in just a second. Okay, I have spent some time researching some of the possible endings. There are quite a few different good endings, I think. But I found one that sounds interesting because supposedly it ties into another book in the Choose Your Own Adventure series. So we're going to pick a path that might possibly tie into one of those books. So our path begins way back on the very first page. If you remember, at this point in the book, we were given 2 choices. We could either try to land the balloon and release gas, or we could try to ride out the storm, and I think we chose to ride out the storm. But this new path we're going to take is going to begin on page 2. The choice says, if you act now, you can release gas from the balloon and land before the storm overtakes you. If this is your choice, turn to page 2. So let's go to page 2. You pull on the cord, releasing some of the gas, allowing you to descend. Nothing happens. The storm clouds are coming closer, and the gentle wind has now turned into a howling gale. The coast is near. You must release some of the gas and settle to earth, or you will be swept out to sea, Sarah says. Sarah says, let's pull harder. The valve is stuck. But Peter pulls out his jackknife. The situation is desperate. You must make a large slit in the fabric. Both Peter and Sarah look frightened, and they are relying on you to make the right decision. If you use Sarah's plan and pull together on the cord, turn to page 4. Perhaps Peter is right. A slit in the balloon's fabric will let the gas out quickly. If this is your decision, turn to page 5. Well, we're not going to damage our balloon in case we need it, so we're going to try Sarah's plan to pull together on the cord and turn to page 4. You all pull together. Even Harry is able to tug on the end of the cord. You hear the slow hiss of escaping gas, but without warning, the cord breaks. Cold wind and rain are soaking you, and lightning flashes. You attempt to slit the fabric with Peter's knife. The knife slips from your chilled fingers. The balloon is lower now, sweeping over a village. A church spire looms closer and closer. You brush past it, startling pigeons perching on the gutters of the roof. Beyond the village, you see a sandy beach, anchored fishing boats, and the sea beyond. You must do something. Sarah suggests that you toss out the anchor with its long rope. Perhaps you can snag something. The danger is that a quick stop might rip the basket apart. If you decide to drop the anchor, turn to page 10. If you decide to do nothing and hope that the local fishermen will come to your rescue when the balloon settles into the water, turn to page 9. Let's drop the rope anchor. We're going to turn to page 10. You and Peter heave the anchor over the side. The rope snakes out rapidly. Far below you, the anchor bounces off a cobblestone street and through a flower bed and drags across the sandy beach. It's too late for the anchor to catch on to anything. Just as you lose hope, the anchor, which is now dragging through the water, catches on a small boat. There's a violent shock as the balloon whips the end of the anchor line taut. For a second, the balloon strains on the end of the rope like a dog on a leash. But seconds later, you see the boat has broken loose and is being towed behind the balloon. At least you'll have something to shelter in when the balloon finally settles into the raging sea. But should you slide down the rope to the deck of the boat now, or wait for morning? If you decide to slide down the rope now, turn to page 20. But if you decide to wait for the storm to abate and for morning to come, turn to page 18. No, we got to get out of this balloon. And, we've got the water below us, so if we fall, we have a soft landing. So we're going to slide down the rope and turn to page 20. Peter and Sarah first slide down the rope. Harry climbs down on your shoulders, and you work your way down to the deck of the small sailing craft. Peter checks below deck and then reports, with a snappy salute, that there is no one aboard, and that there is plenty of food and water on board. The first order you give is to cut away the balloon. It is pulling the boat too fast, and spray is sizzling over the deck. Sarah thinks that you should turn the boat around, raise the sails, and beat back against the wind to the coast of France. But Peter is keen to go on. To the south, he says, is the golden coast of Africa, with the desert sheiks, caravans, and all sorts of adventure. Both look to you for a decision, but you smile and pull a coin from your pocket. Let the coin decide, you laugh, and flip it in the air. Heads, and you shall try to return to the coast of France. Tails, and you will carry on to the south and the coast of Africa. The coin lands on the deck. If it is heads, turn to page 81. If it is tails, turn to page 82. Well, in this case, it really doesn't matter, because if it's heads, we end up going to page 82 afterwards anyway. But let's see if it lands on heads, let's see what that's like. Like I said, it's going to take us back to page 82 as if it were tails. But let's read what it says on page 81. The coin jingles on the deck. Heads it is. All heaving together, you raise the sails. Sarah takes the helm, and Peter works furiously on the navigational instruments through much of the next hour. Finally, he comes on deck and announces that in 4 more hours you shall sight the coast of France. And indeed you do. Police and fishermen meet you at the dock, soon followed by television crews. What a story you have to tell, and as you stand there on the jetty, you notice that Harry is looking to the south over the blue Mediterranean, tail slowly wagging. You imagine that you can smell the cooking fires of Africa and feel the searing heat of the desert. And secretly, you wish that the coin had been tails. Perhaps if you could flip the coin again. So let's turn the page and see what would have happened if we had gotten tails. Tails it is, and south you sail. Steady as she goes, you shout with glee. Peter and Harry eagerly hoist the sails, and Sarah takes the helm. With all well on deck, you go below to cook a whopping meal for your friends. It's a snug ship, and a fine crew, and somehow you feel at home on the bounding sea. Before strong winds, the little sailing ship flies, surfing down the backs of waves and cutting through their crests. A day passes, and then another, and that night the wind grows stronger. The little boat is pressed to its limit, and you worry that the sails and rigging may not stand the strain. Perhaps you should pull down some of the sails, but before you can call to Peter and Sarah, there is a flash of breaking seas and a tremendous grinding sound. You have run aground. The 4 of you quickly inflate your life jackets. The small boat is breaking up in the pounding surf. A wave, larger than any you have ever seen, sweeps you off the deck and into the foaming surf. Over and over you tumble, swallowing salt water. Is this how your adventure will end? And then you feel sand beneath your feet. You wade through the surf and join your exhausted friends. Together, the 4 of you lie down in the shelter of a palm tree and sleep. At dawn, stiff and bruised, you turn to page 6. And I recognize this picture. I think we've been here before. It's interesting how this path has intertwined with our previous decisions. But anyway, let's carry on. Looking up and down the shoreline, you realize that you have landed on a very remote section of North Africa coast. Nothing except sand and low, scrubby hills can be seen in either direction. But it certainly feels good to be back on solid ground again. Eagerly, you all start to explore your surroundings. Harry finds an interesting bush, but it is Peter who spies the entrance to a cave which overlooks the beach. Just as you start to climb toward the cave, a dozen horsemen in white robes thunder over the top of the sand dune and ride toward you, shouting and waving swords. If you decide to accept capture, raise your hands in surrender, put on a good smile and hope for the best on page 12. But if you think the horsemen are dangerous, hide in the cave that Peter has discovered on page 19, and watch your head as you crawl through the narrow entrance to the mysterious cave. Okay, in this case, we're going to diverge from our previous choice. Now we're going to go into the cave and turn to page 19. As you all lie panting in the cave from your hard run, you hear the horsemen thunder by. "They didn't see us after all," Peter exclaims. Cautiously, you peer out the opening. The horsemen continue on for a moment and then circle back. It looks like they did see you at first, and then lost sight of you as you scrambled for the cave. "They'll start to search for us soon," Sarah says. "What will we do?" You can see their bright swords in the sunlight. Their leader, dressed in purple robes, wheels his horse around and points directly at your cave. Other horsemen start to dismount and climb the hill toward you. "Look!" Peter shouts. "There are old doors here in the cave." You examine the doors. There are 3 of them, and each is painted a different color. Perhaps they are storage vaults for smugglers, or even the entrance to tunnels. You'd better choose one of them and hide. If you open the blue door, enter it quickly and turn to page 24. Peter thinks the red door is best. If you think his hunch is correct, enter the red door and lock it behind you on page 28. Sarah and Harry pick the white door. What a difficult decision, but if this is your choice, be quick about it and turn to page 27. Our dog Harry has a very keen sense of smell. We're going to trust him and turn to page 27. You enter through the white door and lock it behind you. It is very dark, and in the far distance you can hear strange music. Finally, your eyes adjust to the darkness and you can see pinpoints of stars and planets with rings of color floating in the black, inky void of space. As you walk along a pathway, you see strange, partially formed visions of black rivers rushing through rocky tunnels, of jewels and chests of gold, of green, snow-capped mountains and stormy blue seas. A voice says in your mind that you have entered a time shift, that you can move forward or backward in both time and space. Your friends hold tightly to your arm, wondering what to do. A comet burns across the sky, and you feel the cold rain of meteor dust. It would be better to leave this strange place, and frantically your mind reaches out to grasp a vision. Now, warp through space and time to either a stormy night at sea on page 18 or an underground river on page 36. The underground river sounds really interesting to me, but my map tells us we need to go to page 18 to the stormy night. Let's turn to page 18. So here on page 18, we have actually gone back in time to where we were above the boat. We were in the balloon with the anchor attached to the boat far below us. And this is an alternate reality now. So let's continue here. And we have just slept in the balloon with the boat way below us. A long night passes. The storm slowly abates. The black clouds part to reveal a sky full of stars and a slipper moon. Trailing far behind and below you is the small boat, its wake silver in the moonlight. Toward dawn, you and your friends fall asleep. You awake to shouting. As you peer over the rim of the basket, you see a man with a full black beard on the deck of the boat shaking his fist at you. He takes the line, which is caught in his boat's rigging, and wraps it around a winch. Slowly, he reels you in as if you were a giant puffer fish. Harry growls deep in his throat, as though he senses danger. Should you accept capture? After all, it is your fault that the man's boat has been torn loose from its anchor. Perhaps he will accept your apology and offer you food and drink. If this is your choice, turn to page 41. Sarah is more cautious. She points out that the man is dangerous looking and very angry. Wouldn't it be safer, she says, if we were to cut loose and let the balloon sail on? Land can't be far away, and all of you feel more confident now that the storm is gone and the sun is rising. If this is your decision, turn to page 3. We are going to accept capture and apologize to the man, so we're going to turn to page 41. Slowly, your balloon is reeled in. At last, the basket is just a few feet above the deck, and you jump down. Peter and Sarah hand Harry down, and then you assist them to the heaving deck. Without warning, the wild-looking man casts off your balloon's line. Your retreat is cut off.
My name is Wright, Professor Hardly Wright, expert on ancient Africa. And who might you be?
His voice thunders. You explain your misadventures, and his scowling face softens.
Well,
he finally grins.
I guess I can't complain. I was bound for the African shore at any rate, and maybe you can be assistance in my search for treasure. If you join me, I'll give you a share of the wealth. But if you don't want to join me, I'll inflate a rubber raft and set you adrift near Black Isle, a small island that we'll soon be passing. What's your choice, my young friends?
Professor Wright doesn't look like any professor you ever saw. He's dirty and rough-looking, but you like his grin, and a treasure hunt sounds tempting. If you decide to join him, turn to page 45. On the other hand, Black Isle doesn't sound very inviting, but after all, it's land and safety. If you decline to join the professor and instead row ashore, turn to page 43. Professor Hardly Wright? I wonder if the book is giving us a clue with this guy's name, Professor Hardly Wright. So maybe we will abandon Professor Hardly Wright, although he does look kind of like a mix between Hagrid and Blackbeard. At any rate, we're going to abandon Professor Hardly Wright, and we're going to go to shore on the boat and turn to page 43. Professor Wright shrugs his shoulders.
Well, you're missing the fortune of a lifetime, but that's up to you.
He inflates a black rubber raft, and all of you crowd into it. The professor points to a small island.
Row for that, and you'll be safe, he says,
and casts you off. Without looking back, he sails on. Each of you takes a turn at the oars. It is further than it seemed, and the sea is rough. As the island grows closer, Peter shouts a warning. There is a reef all the way around the island, and huge waves are breaking on the reef. If the raft flipped over, you will all be ground to death on the coral. Sarah says she has often sailed with her uncle and knows a lot about the sea. She claims that you must face the breaking seas and paddle in backward, staying in the trough between the seas. But Peter has tried surfing many times and insists that you paddle strongly toward the shore and let the breaking seas lift you over the jagged coral. Harry looks at you with trust, wags his tail, and then covers his eyes with his paws, hoping for the best. If you use Sarah's plan and paddle in backward, turn to page 30. If you decide to follow Peter's plan and try to surf in, turn to page 31. I would have picked to follow Peter's plan and try surfing in, but the map tells us we need to follow Sarah's plan, paddle backwards, and turn to page 30. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, on this opposite page here, page 31, this is what would have happened, I guess, if we had chosen Peter's plan. As you can see in the picture here. Not a good ending, apparently. But we chose page 30, so let's continue. Paddling backwards sounds crazy, but Sarah is very confident. You turn the rubber dinghy to face the advancing seas. You find that you have much better control over the little boat. Nearer and nearer the reef you drift, the breaking seas sound like a continuous roll of thunder. Now, Sarah shouts, spin the boat around and row for the shore before the next wave breaks. In a slick of green foam, you pass over the reef, jagged spears of coral just inches below the thin fabric of your dinghy's bottom. Looking back, you see a monster sea advancing, its top curling with foaming white water. It curls far above your heads, blotting out the sun. Now you are pulling in the oars as if you are being chased by a screaming demon. The sea breaks, and a wall of foaming water rushes at you, but you are safe inside the lagoon, and the foam's fury has been broken by the reef. You all sigh and rest on the oars, glad to be alive. Finally, with weary arms, you resume rowing toward the shore. Those waving palm trees still seem miles away. Wipe the sweat from your face and keep rowing and turn to page 32. It looks like a long row. Sometimes the island is lost behind the heaving waves. Peter directs you, as he remembers that the island is just a little to the left of the rising sun. Soon, all of you can see palm trees and low hills. In a rumble of surf, your boat lands on the beach. There must be a fishing village nearby, but you decide to shelter in caves which speckle the cliffs, at least until you are warmer. You make your way to a cave. It's good to be out of the wind and coolness of the dawn air. Slowly, your eyes adjust to the dim light of the cave. There are 3 ancient doors, their paint flaking off and hinges rusty. One is blue, one is red, and one is white. Perhaps food or warm clothes are stockpiled in the rooms beyond, or even treasure. You all decide to try your luck. If you pick the blue door, turn to page 24. If you choose to open the red door, turn to page 28. If you decide to open the white door, turn to page 27. Well, we could potentially be stuck in a time loop here if we go back through the white door, back to page 27. So this time, we're going to go through the red door and advance our story. We're going to turn to page 28. The red door swings open on well-oiled hinges. You step into a clean, well-lighted corridor. The air is cool and air-conditioned, and the place smells like an office building. The 4 of you tiptoe down the corridor and enter a large room. Along a wall, computers are whirring, and in the center of the room are several men and women in white coats, pouring chemicals into vats, looking through microscopes, and making notes on large sheets of paper. A small man with very thick glasses rushes up to you.
"Oh, goodness me," he exclaims. "This is a secret government laboratory. You shouldn't be here."
You explain that it was just by accident, and then ask, "What do you do here? It looks very scientific." The man, whose name is Professor Watchett, scratches his balding head.
"I don't know," he says. "We've been working here so long that we have forgotten what we are doing here. But we do have some inventions that we can try out on you."
He shows you a jar of liquid.
"I'm afraid you can't leave here alive. It's so secret that we just couldn't allow that. But if you help us in our experiments, then we might trust you."
You and your friends look at each other. You really don't want to try drinking the professor's secret liquid. Sarah whispers,
"Let's run for it. Maybe we can find a way out."
Should you decide to drink the professor's liquid, hold your nose and gulp down the foul-smelling stuff. Then relax until the chemical takes effect on page 66. But if you think that you can escape from the professor's laboratory, push Professor Watchett aside and run for the door on page 39. Well, the map I have says we really should not trust the professor. But just for fun, we're gonna read what happens if we drink the liquid. Let's go to page 66 and try the foul-smelling liquid. Gulp. All of you take turns in drinking the liquid. At first you feel fine, and then slightly dizzy. Peter gives a shout of surprise and points to Sarah. She's disappearing! Sure enough, all of you are becoming invisible. Professor Watchett claps his hands in glee. Oh, goody! He exclaims. We had forgotten what that experimental liquid was supposed to do. All of you are delighted with being invisible. You easily walk past the guards and away from the evil laboratory. 2 days later, you return to your homeland. You find that it is very easy to get into movie theaters and sporting events for free, because no one can see you. But that is not very satisfying. People keep bumping into you and stepping on your feet. Eventually, you become police detectives. Because you can't be seen, you can discover what's going on without being detected. The end. All right, let's go back. The other choice was page 39, so let's turn to page 39. Quickly, you leave the laboratory. Guards are yelling and start to chase you. It looks as though all the doors to the building are blocked off. Up to the roof. You climb the stairs, 2 at a time, huffing and puffing. Finally, you open the door and find that you are standing in the sunlight. A helicopter is parked there. You all jump in, and Sarah takes the controls. Which way? She says. If you choose to fly west, start the engine and zoom in that direction to page 42. Maybe going east would be better. The guards are already on the roof, and they have their pistols aimed at you. If you tell Sarah to go east, buckle up your safety harness and turn to page 80. The correct choice here is to turn to page 42, but let's see what kind of fate awaits us if we were to go to page 80. Sarah can't get the engine going, and suddenly, without any warning, the guards fire at you. Long, sticky streams of red tape shoot from the muzzles of their pistols. You and your friends are completely wrapped in the tape, until only your fingernails and eyebrows are showing. Captured. And what horrible punishment awaits you? Professor Watchett sentences you to 10 years of filling out government forms. You would have preferred breaking rocks or working in the salt mines. Eventually, you die of boredom. The end. Okay, so 80 was clearly not the right choice. I wonder if they shot out bubble tape, the bubblegum bubble tape. At any rate, we chose the wrong ones. We are going to instead turn to page 42. Up and away you fly. The government laboratory slowly disappears in the distance. Sarah sets a course to the west, following the afternoon sun. Soon, the desert rises into foothills, and then into a low mountain range. Mountains here? You ask. Peter looks smug. Of course, he answers. The Atlas Mountains. My father told me all about them. In the late afternoon, Sarah gets the helicopter down gently on a snowfield. Dazzling peaks tower above you. You drink water from an icy stream and eat berries from a bush, but the sun is nearly down. Perhaps you should camp for the night in a lower valley and explore more in the morning, but Sarah can't start the engine. Your friends look to you. Should you stay overnight in the cold helicopter, or should you try to walk down? If you choose to stay, get back in the helicopter and shiver through the night until the sun rises on page 68. If you decide to try to walk down the mountainside, tie a rope to each of your friends in case they slip, and descend to page 114. Let's see what happens if we turn to page 68 and we spend the night in the cold helicopter. I imagine it can't be very good, and this is the wrong way to go. But we'll see what kind of end awaits us on page 68. Dawn finally comes, and the sun rises over 4 freezing friends. You get out of the helicopter and run around to get your bodies warmed up. The sun feels good. It shines with a warm golden light on the slopes of snow above you. "I can try starting the helicopter again," Sarah says, and before you can stop her, she presses the starter and the noisy engine coughs into life. There is a loud rumbling far above you, and you look, horrified, as an avalanche breaks loose and roars down toward you. You never had time to tell her that a loud noise can trigger off a snowslide. You start to run down the mountain, but the wall of the snow overtakes you, burying you under tons of cold, white death. A chilling end. And there is the avalanche. Okay, so that was another dead end, literally a dead end. So let's turn to the correct page, 114. The 4 of you carefully move down the mountainside. The cold night wind whistles through your thin clothing, and you always thought that North Africa was hot. By midnight, you have reached the valley floor. A stream flows along the valley. Peter thinks that there will be a village upstream, but Sarah says that you should follow the stream because it always leads to the sea, and there will always be large cities near the coast. They argue a lot about this and finally look to you to make a decision. Harry really doesn't care. He's ready for any adventure. If you decide to go upstream, walk to page 117. Sarah is usually right. Maybe you should follow the stream down toward the coast. If this is your decision, whistle for Harry, who is presently chasing a squirrel, and plod downstream to page 116. And here we have reached the final decision of the book. If we turn to page 17, we get one ending, and if we turn to page 116, we get another. And it is actually page 116 that supposedly links to another Choose Your Own Adventure. So let's begin with the first choice. We're going to walk upstream to page 117, and then after that ending, we'll turn to page 116. So let's walk upstream to page 117. All through the long night, the 4 of you trudge upward along the valley floor, following the stream. Near dawn, you come to a small village. The people of the village have strange marks on their faces. Their skin is very dark, but they have blue eyes and blonde hair. Peter excitedly tells you that these are the famous Blue Mountain Men. In sign language, the Blue Mountain Men tell you that they have no wish to be part of the modern world. They will not allow you to go back to civilization for fear that you will tell a curious world about their existence. But they will allow you to join the tribe and live with them in peace. You are assigned the job of being goat herder. A young boy of the tribe becomes your friend and teaches you to play the flute. Every day you wander the hills around the village with your herd, playing sweet tunes and letting the sun warm your body. You and your friends are quite content never to leave this peaceful place, and somehow you don't even miss the taste of ice cream. The end. All right, let's turn to the previous page, 116, for the final conclusion to our story and a supposed link to another. For 2 days, you follow the stream down the valley floor. The stream is joined by other streams to become a river. You camp at night under the trees and eat nuts and fruits which grow wild along the river. At last, you see a modern city in the distance. Ragged and weary, you enter the city and tell the authorities about your many adventures. Television and newspapers make you famous overnight. One morning, as you are packing to take a plane back to your homeland, there is a knock at your hotel room door. You open it and find a pleasant man with fuzzy white hair standing there. "I am a professor from the United Nations Ocean Exploring Committee," he says. He explains that the United Nations has built a submarine called the Seeker to explore the ocean depths. He and his committee feel that you have proved that you are adventurous and can handle dangerous situations intelligently. Would you care to join him on his journey under the sea? Of course you would. That sounds really exciting. The end of this adventure, but the beginning of another. And I believe this is where the book would continue. The adventure continues with another Choose Your Own Adventure book. I think it's called Journey Under the Sea. And that will have to be an adventure for another day. So this concludes our story, Buy a Balloon to the Sahara. And now let's do a book review. Buy a Balloon to the Sahara. So I think this was a pretty good adventure. I was pretty happy with some of the endings. Not quite exactly intuitive on some of the choices, but you know, what do you expect? It's kind of a crazy adventure. In this book we had aliens, we had time travel, balloon rides, and strange, weird inventions that turned us invisible. So, I mean, it was lots of fun. I'm going to give Buy a Balloon to the Sahara 5 out of 5 hot air balloons. It was a great adventure, and I think the writing was pretty good as well. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm glad you came along with me on this adventure. I'd love to hear from you if you want to just take a second, say hello in the comments, or just leave a thumbs up. It'd be much appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next adventure. Thanks so much for coming along, and I'll catch you in the next book. Take care.